Hello there, my name is Michael Maynard and welcome back to Gorilla Picking. Now, what we are going to do today, folks, is talk about the Cisa 285/85 hardened padlock. In actual fact, it is a thing called a shutter lock. You'd call this either a shutter lock or a container lock, because these things are designed to be used outdoors in all weathers. They are designed to be put in very rough, very rugged situations and then just left out in the weather. So you can imagine this on a shipping container down at the docks, for example. Now, before we go any further, gents, I am very happy to say here and now that is the best padlock I have ever tested. So in terms of reviews, which this video is, honest to God, if I had something that I absolutely positively had to lock up and keep the bad guys out of, I would buy one of these. Now, let's talk about what it's kind of up against. You'll have seen my last video in which I talked about this lock here. So this is a Pacific lock, a pack lock. It is made of aluminium. It's fairly lightweight. This thing here is 50 grams off of a kilo. This is 950 grams, that thing. That is a massive hunk of hardened steel. Now, this, on the other hand, is really a lock that's designed for light duty. Okay, so we're really not comparing these two locks. Okay, that's a sort of an unfair comparison. What we need to be comparing this lock with, I think, is the Chubb Hercules, which is a lock that sells when you can get them. They've actually been discontinued now, but the Hercules is a concealed shackle padlock designed for shipping containers and heavy attack situations, which will cost you the best part of $150 if you can find one new. And the other thing I think this is up against is the Sergeant Greenleaf military padlocks, the 885s, if I've got the number right, which again you can't really buy new, but you can get them surplus for about $500. Now this thing, on the other hand, is on eBay for 72 British pounds, which is 96, so call it $100. You cannot buy security better than that, and I'd like to actually issue a bit of a challenge, guys. If you guys know of a lock that is better than this one for $100, then by God, please send it to me and I'll review it. I have got a gazillion locks to review. Okay, I got a bucket full of the damn things. But I'll tell you now, I don't have anything in this league. So if you guys think there's something else out there that rivals this thing, please send it in. I'd love to see it. All right. Well, why am I ranting about this thing? Why am I raving about it? Well, it is an absolute gem of industrial design. So it is simplicity itself. There is no wasted hardware on this lock. There is no wasted materials. This thing is chopped. It's a thing called a monoblock padlock. Okay, mono means one. So the body of this lock has been cut out of a solid piece of steel and hardened. So it is 85 mils that way, 28 mils that way, and I don't know what, about 60 mils that way, something like that. With just a cutout there for the shackle or whatever to go through. This bar that goes through the middle here, that's how do you get the key in? That is again hardened steel, 14 mils in diameter and free to rotate. So there is no earthly way you are going to cut through either this or this. The steel, you can see that the file doesn't bite into that at all, just skates over the surface. This shit is hard. You are not going to be cutting that with any ease at all. Now, in terms of drilling, that's a very interesting point. Now, when we strip this thing apart, you are going to see a very cunning little system that these guys have used in here. Oh, I should mention, fellas, I have pulled this apart as far as the core. I haven't pulled the core apart yet, so I think I know what's in there. Okay, I think I know what the pinning is, but I haven't actually had a look at it. So what I've done is disassembled this so that I could see how it worked, but I haven't actually pulled the core apart. All right, now back to the plot. When we pull this to bits, you will see that this front plate here that protects the keyway is affixed, let's say, to the main body of the lock by an incredibly cunning idea. They have got a bolt that goes down inside here, so you can't get to this bolt without removing the shackle. Okay, so you've got to take this rod out before you can get to it. You'll see me do that later. Then when you undo that bolt, there are two ball bearings that are being forced down into the top of this thing to make sure that this plate doesn't move. Now, if that wasn't enough, there is actually a great, a fascinating little thing in behind there as well. Now, if I just get my pick and give that a bit of a wiggle, you'll see that there is a little steel shutter there that moves just a little bit when I wiggle it. Now, that is even more anti-drill protection, folks. So they are relying first of all on the fact that we've got 6 mils of hardened steel, right? And then behind that there's this little plate that wobbles around. Now you're going to be looking at that little plate wobbling around and thinking, what the hell's that for? And unless you play with safes a little bit, this won't be terribly familiar to you, okay? But in safe construction in particular, some safes are designed so that you can drill a little way into the safe if you like, okay, but then there is a layer of material that is designed to break your drill. So what they're not trying to do is put a like a very, very, very hard plate in there, okay. What they are trying to do is put a little booby trap layer in there that as soon as your drill hits it, it snaps and you wreck your drill. Now that's actually what this thing does. So this little plate here is designed when the tip of your drill hits it to catch and twist suddenly and shear off your drill. So the theory is, if you are trying to get through this, you're going to need maybe half a dozen attempts or whatever, because every time you try and go through, you're going to snap another drill. Very, very clever stuff. Now, on that note, there is one drill point on this lock that I am not actually going to discuss. And I think that this lock, before I talk about that, this is a bloody difficult lock to pick. We'll talk about why in a minute. Okay, let's assume that we're not talking about picking for a sec. Other than trying to pick this lock, it is a fantastically difficult lock to get into, okay? It really is. Now, if you know about safes, then you'll be aware that there is one fairly obvious but actually quite difficult drill point that this lock has got. So I'm not going to discuss that on this video. I think it's outside the scope of what I do. If you are a safe guy, or if you're a locksmith and you think you know what that drill point is, please do not put a public comment on here, okay? I want to keep that sort of information out of YouTube, but send me a PM with it, okay, and we can discuss that. So I think there is a weakness, but it's not much of a weakness. Very few people are going to know how to know where it is and know how to exploit it, and to actually make the attack work would be bloody difficult because of the geometry of the lock. Anyway, so now what we're going to do is talk about picking it. Now, I have owned this lock for about 12 months, and I got it from Chris down in Christchurch. Chris, thank you 1,000 times for this lock. It's been a massive learning experience, actually, this lock. it has been picked once before in New Zealand by Tiffany. He had to make his own pick to get into it, which is what Tiffany does for fun, basically. Tiffany's a madman. Now, I couldn't pick this for months, and the only pick I have found that I can get into this with is one of the Sparrow's SS Dev picks. So I identified that I had a weakness with certain keyways, and about a fortnight or 3 weeks ago maybe, I talked to Nick at Pick Pals and said, okay mate, look, I've just got to spend some money on this, what are we going to do? And what he did was sold me the SS Dev picks. I'll just grab them out of my thing actually. So I've now got my SS Dev picks on this side of the kit. The SS Dev set is 3 picks in 2 different thicknesses. I must have an extra pick in there somewhere. I don't know what pick that is, but so what I did was purchase the SS Dev ones, and this little beast here turned out to be the way to get into this lock. Now, I don't think there's very many people in the world with 15 thousandths SS Dev picks and the wherewithal to use them. So I think this lock is very, very good against almost all picking attacks. A lot of that has to do with the keyway, so it's actually very difficult to see up inside there, but the lock is, the key's kind of upside down on this one. The pins are coming down from what kind of looks like the bottom of the lock to me, and I agree, it's very hard to see in there. Okay, it's very hard to give you a decent picture of that keyway, but trust me when I tell you, that is a very, very narrow keyway. Only a 15th hour pick is going to do. And the bitting on this one is actually what kept me out for so long, I think. What we have got here actually is 2 high cuts at the front, 2 highish ones at the back, and a very low cut in the middle. And that, combined with the difficult keyway, has made this lock an absolute nightmare to get into. In terms of the pinning, well, we're going to find out in about 5 minutes' time, but I think, from having picked it a few times now, I think what we've got is 2 standard pins, 2 spools, and 1 serrated. So I'm fairly sure that pin 1 is standard. I think 2 and 3 are the spools. I think 4 is serrated, and I think 5 is probably another standard pin. That's kind of how it feels like to pick. But again, believe me when I tell you, it is an absolute bitch to get into. So, after having ranted about how good this thing is for 13 minutes, we are now going to clamp it up, we're going to pick it, and then once I've picked it, I will disassemble it step by step. I'll show you how to disassemble it, because it's not an easy one, this one, so it's going to be a fairly long video. I'm not going to fast forward it, and I'll show you the security features as we go. So, back in a second, gents, we'll get it open. Okay folks, well, we're clamped up and we're ready to go. So this is where the rubber meets the road, really. This is where we find out how good we are. That is the key. Difficult bitting, difficult keyway. You can see the keyway is very deep inside the lock. It's deep there so that it's protected from drilling, obviously. So what we have to do here is use a Z-bar actually. The Tron won't go anywhere near it, so I am using this SS Dev hook. So, 1, binding, click, 1 set's incredibly high, 2 nothing, 3 nothing, having trouble getting on to 4. I think I clicked 4. 5's binding. Okay, click and a little tiny turn out of 5. Alright, well for a first pass that's pretty bloody good. We've got a little bit of movement on the core, not much. 1 nothing. 2 nothing. Little click out of 3, 4 nothing. Might have dropped 5 there, I'm not sure. Okay, back to the front. Well, 1's definitely dropped. Click and a turn, okay. Wow, alright, I'm pretty relieved to see that. So now what we're looking for is spools. Okay, and 2 is counter rotating hugely on me, or huge for this lock anyway. Okay, dropped into a deeper false set. Three is counter rotating. Thought I'd just set 3, but clearly we're not open. Maybe I've missed something here. Everything down, oh, I'm not sure if 4's counter rotating here or not. I might just manually counter rotate that and see what happens. Here we go, and we're open. Okay, that was bloody hard work, folks. As far as 5-pin locks go, that I think is probably the most tricky one I can remember picking. Really not an easy lock to get open. Now, what I'm going to do now, folks, I usually fast forward through stripping the locks, but this time I think I'm going to walk you through it, because there's some really interesting stuff here. So let's lock the thing up for a start. Okay, so now we're locked again, alright. No way to get into that lock, no way to pull it apart, alright. What you have got to do, you have got to withdraw this bar. So I'm just going to frame this a little bit better, guys. I'll zoom in just a wee bit here. Okay, so there is a little spring-loaded arrangement there that's holding this in. Now, if you were pulling these apart a lot, you'd actually have a little metal element, I'm going to call it, that you slip in here. Okay. Now, I don't pull these apart a lot, so what I'm going to do is shim it. I'm going to use, this is a feeler gauge in 0.04 mils, and what we are going to do, you're going to see me slip it in there under this little shackle, push it through there, and what we have just done is bypassed the little ball bearing element. So now we can withdraw this just like that. Isn't that the coolest thing you've ever seen? If we get that element out of there, there's the thing that engages, and there will be a dirty great massive spring under there. I guess we should probably get that out as well. Okay, so those elements there are the ones that deal with the shackle. So now what we've got, we have got a hole here with an Allen head screw. So we undo that, and this is where it gets pretty funky. I'll zoom in closer even. As we undo this, what you are going to notice is that 2 ball bearings are going to fall out. I think it's 2, it's been a while since I pulled this apart. So, you guys watch that. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so the way that works, that screw, that grub screw that you just saw there, has got a pointed end, okay? And what that grub screw is doing is forcing down between those 2 ball bearings there, forcing them apart, so that this unit here, this anti-drill protection at the front here, is locked into the front of that lock. Absolutely genius design, it really is. Okay, now here is the little element that's designed to snap your drill. So you can see how that this is captive but loose. So it wobbles around in there, and as you're drilling, your drill goes through here. If you can manage to get through that many mils of hardened steel, hits this thing which is wobbling around and snaps your drill for you. Great stuff. Okay, now out comes the core. We'll think about that in a minute. We'll strip that down. We'll just make sure that we keep it in shot so that nobody whinges about me not having picked the lock. Here is the locking mechanism. Incredibly simple. So all we have got here is a cam, a lifter, and a ball bearing. And what happens very simply is that the cam forces the ball bearing up into this part of the bolt, keeps it there, and then when you rotate the core, everything drops down, the ball drops out of the way, and you can withdraw the bolt. Fascinating, brilliant, just excellent design, eh? It really is. Here's a look inside the thing. It's just made like the Rock of Gibraltar, eh? It's just brilliant. Cisa are Cisa are an Italian company, and they have been bought by Ingersoll Rand, so they're owned by Ingersoll, and it's got to be said, the guys that put this together knew what they were about, eh? Alright, so let's see what this pinning actually was. Again, my guess is that it's 2 standers, 2 spools and a serrated, but I really am not sure. And the other thing I'm not sure about is how to actually get the circlip off the back. That's hanging on there pretty tightly, that thing. So okay, by the look of it, we need to deform it. Yeah, it's a deformable one. Now here's a good look at that keyway, guys. That's why we had the trouble that we did. Just remember that this keyway was in behind that many millimeters of steel, alright, which makes the thing bloody hard to get to. These guys are fantastic designers, eh? They really are. Alright, enough ranting about that. Let's get the key in and find ourselves a shim. It's quite notchy. In fact, it's very notchy. Okay, what can we do about that? I really do not want to pull this apart without shimming it. That's just not going to happen. Okay, it's notchy because it's tight. The tolerances here are very tight. We're going to turn that almost 180, see if that gives us a little more clearance. Yeah, not a lot. Okay, I think that's going to have to do. Here we go. Okay, we're out and we got no disasters. So the first thing we notice is that pin 1 here is steel, so yet more anti-drill protection, if you can believe that. These guys do not want you drilling the lock. Let's have a look at the pins. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5. Okay, so nothing special about the core there. They've kept it simple. The magic in the core is in the keyway and the defence of the keyway. Bottom pins, brass, except for pin number 1, which is steel. Surprise, surprise. I should have expected that, actually, knowing what I know now about the anti-drill protection on this thing. They've just gone for the doctor on that. Okay, now I think that that's the front of the lock. I am just going to mark that F for front. I didn't do that. That was dumb. But we should be able to work it out from the pinning, I think. Okay, 1 standard steel, 2 going to be a spool, I feel sure. Yep. 3 Another spool. Yep, that's what I was feeling as well. 4. Oh, another spool. Okay, interesting. I thought 4 was serrated. So what's 5? Okay, 5 is serrated. Right, 5 is a little barrel serration. Okay, I can live with that. All right, so here we go. Let's zoom in on the pinning so that you can see what we're up against. There we go. That, gentlemen, is how you make a high security padlock. This unequivocally is the best padlock I have ever pulled apart. This padlock right here, I would put that on anything, literally anything that I had to secure without a moment's hesitation. So there it is, folks. This was a long one because we had to review it, I had to explain the security features, and I had to do the picking and the stripping as well, all in real time. Really hope you enjoyed that, guys. I absolutely loved picking and reviewing this one. I really want to know what you guys think about this. I want you to leave comments down below. I also want to know if you know or if you agree with me about the obvious drill point for this one. PM me about that one, guys. Don't put that in public comments. And thirdly and finally, if you have a lock that you reckon is as good or better than this, then please, for God's sake, send it to me. I would love to see it. Thanks for watching, guys. My name's Michael Maynard. This is Gorilla Picking, and that was a bloody good padlock.